Welcome to You've Got This with Sarah Hamaker, a podcast to encourage and equip moms along their parenting journey. Join Sarah each week as she interviews dads and moms like you and discusses the joys, challenges, and rewards of raising kids.
Hi, and welcome to this week's You've Got This. I'm your host, Sarah Hamaker, and today I have with me Lance Miller. Lance has worked in education, early childhood education, adult education for more than 2 decades. But more important, he has 4 boys of his own, and he's a parent coach, and he's also coached youth sports. And today we're going to talk about kids and their sports and their activities. So welcome, Lance.
Yes, thank you, Sarah.
So there's a lot of talk today. I know you're in the Midwest. I'm on the East Coast. About, and I think this is true across the country, about kids being overscheduled, having too many sports. I mean, when I was a kid, my parents were like, "You can play one sport at a time, and that's only if it fits in with our family schedule." So there were some seasons where I didn't play sports, and I wasn't terribly good at sports. It was kind of fun for me, and I think that was, got me out of the house kind of thing. But why do you think kids are more scheduled today? Do you think that we pack too many sports, too many activities in our kids' lives?
Well, it's definitely easy to do. It's definitely easy to pack in too much. A lot of parents. I do coach. Currently, I coach my younger 2 boys I have a 1st and 3rd grader, and they are playing soccer this season. And another boy on our team is also playing tackle football. So he's 2 sports at this season, and I'm sure he plays all year round. This fall soccer season will go through October, and they have a spring soccer season, the same program that runs. That would be into the March, I guess, April. And I'm pretty sure that he plays basketball too. So that would be the winter months in between.
And this is
that family is quite a bit involved.
Yeah, that's like a 3rd grader.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he's a 3rd grader, and he has multiple sports year round. And I see a lot of it. A lot of times it's the parents that get so involved, and they have friends, family friends, and somebody signs up for a sport and they feel like they should too, and next thing you know, you're year round going from basketball to soccer to whatever else. So I think a lot of it, the parents get a lot out of it too. And I think my wife and I definitely have had the conversation to try to avoid living vicariously through your kids. Everybody wishes they were better at sports as a kid, and if you see your own child, you have high aspirations for them. You want to give them every chance you can to excel, and to the most competitive kids right now, the ones that will go on and play in high school and college, they're doing the extra sports. So, for example, my oldest boy plays basketball, and he's played through upwards programs and the Y, and his school, by the time he's in 8th grade now, so he's been playing for his school for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And some of those kids, again, they're playing basketball year round in very competitive leagues, and their parents feel, and probably rightly so, they have to be playing that much to keep up with the best of the best. If you think your kid has a chance to go on, then even in the 7th and 8th grade, they feel like they have to keep their kids involved just to stay competitive.
And I think that, to me, that sounds a little sad. Granted,
Not every kid, like you said.
Yeah. Right. And I remember as a kid, I wasn't a particularly talented child when it came to athletics, but that didn't really matter. I played basketball in high school myself, and I went to a small private school, and the only reason I ever started a game was because there was like 8 of us on the team, and they needed a warm body on the court. And I wonder sometimes if we're not doing our kids a disservice by saying that, that this whole idea that they have to be really good at something. Have we lost the ability to have our kids just enjoy a sport for the sheer thing that they just enjoy it and they may practice, but they're never going to be like great at it?
I think if you're aware of that, there's different leagues for you. I mean, for example, soccer, we're involved in a league here in Fort Wayne that's there's 1,200 kids that play in this fall league over, from 4 or 5 years old is the youngest, and they'll play through, I think the oldest grades on the biggest fields are maybe 6th or 7th grade. And then by then, they can play for their school, so they really start losing numbers who will be involved in this program. So anyway, so it's just, 1,200 kids they have signed up, and all volunteer parents. And but if you want to be more competitive, there are other places in town that you can go. And, with, more, I don't know if they're professional level, but some of the coaches get paid to run those teams, and there's those kinds of options too. So you really have a choice. It's really, if you want it to be more social, we definitely have those kids on the team they're just happy to show up, they're happy to show up and run with everybody else. But I've got a few kids that just have a real gift. They're just natural athletes that are playing soccer and they love it, and they go home and they practice more on their own, and it shows up in the game. Those few kids, out of 12, maybe there's 2 or 3 that are at top level that could go on if they cared to. They could find something more competitive and get coaches that are more experienced and, and really work on drills and, details.
Yeah, but when you have kids, especially the kids in elementary school, really should we be focusing so much on extra drills and skills and stuff? Because it can really eat up that family time. And how do you recommend that parents balance these activities and sports events with the overall family? How does that work with your family, for example?
Well, the way we've made it work in our family is we get involved. I coach, so I'm with my kids, while we do it. We make it a family event. But there are times, we make homework in school, a priority. So, with the younger groups, it's maybe one practice a week and then a game on Saturday. But when they get into the middle school, and they're playing for their schools, then you're talking, a couple hours every night after school. My oldest boy and my 5th grader this year started cross country. And that was 4 days a week of practice and then the meet on Saturday. So you really only had Sunday off. And there was some push to run on Fridays too, but we kind of held our ground there and didn't practice then. But yeah, it's easy to do, to get overwhelmed with that. And I'm a firm believer, once you commit to a team, that you're part of that team for that season. And I really think you should stick that out as part of your commitment. At the same time, if your grades are going down, then yeah, you should take that night off of practice and focus on your homework first. You are a student athlete, so you're a student first. So that is the priority. And then you're talking about families. Then yes, I do see it as a stress on a lot of families that are, especially when they have multiple kids, multiple sports. A few families come to mind where they can just barely get from one place to another, where they're dropping one child off, running 20 minutes across town to pick up another child. Somebody's doing homework in the back of the van while they're waiting for the 3rd child to get off of their practice. And I can definitely see that as a burden, but yet they've been doing it for, a number of years now, and it's just how their family is formed. That's how, they're on the run the whole time, involved with, the church a couple times a week and all the sporting events. And so it really depends on, your priorities as a family. I think if you start seeing some issues where homework isn't getting done, the teachers are, contacting you with issues at school, then, you really have to pay attention and make that the priority. But, that's kind of up to the individual families at that point.
So sometimes I think that when our kids have too much scheduled, they don't have any free time. Have we lost the ability to give our kids freedom to do nothing? I live right outside of Washington, D.C., and let me tell you, talk about pressure cooker around here sometimes. Yeah. And it seems like that we've lost the value of downtime. For our family, it's very important. We're all kind of introverted tendencies. We all really recharge when we have time to kind of be quiet, be by ourselves, and not have a lot of things to do. And frankly, it's a lot driven by myself. If I had to drive my kids to sports events all the time, I think I would just die. It just wouldn't work. I'd be stressed, and then all the time.
Right.
But I know a lot of families it doesn't bother them. But I think that the whole free time for kids, we kind of tend to forget how important that is. How do you carve that out with the sports that you do with your kids?
Right. I think it's definitely a good point that just having free time to be creative, just to let your mind clear for a little bit is important. We've approached it where we try to take a season off, because we coach as well. Mm-hmm. We're involved there. So we try to take one season off where we try to get through the winter months without, in the past we played some basketball. So we've been taking the spring off. And I guess that feeds into summer. As far as sports, we don't plan anything, but, then the summer months just buzz by, just
yes.
Being with the kids, and that's kind of a downtime, freedom. We try to make that free, choose new things and be on their own downtime, yeah. Like you say.
Do you find that it kind of recharges them? I find that it, right. When my kids, sometimes we have weeks that are busier than others with various things that we are involved with. Right. And yet when we do have, it's almost as if we have a Saturday coming up and we have nothing planned for either the family or anyone. It's like everyone takes a collective sigh and just goes, we can relax.
That is so true. Yeah, we definitely appreciate those weekends where we don't have anything planned, and they do seem to be rare. But yeah, our family, we are aware of that because we did get overwhelmed. There was a year where we went from one season to the next, and it was summer before we had any time where we had free weekends, and we try to map out our summer, and it's only 2 months long these days, so mm-hmm. There's only so many weekends there available with already obligations, and we end up looking at the calendar, and we've got 3 or 4 weekends that are free, and before the next sports season starts. So that's how we came to terms with we need to take a season off as a family. So far, it's been the spring, the last few years, but the only reason we know that is because we've lived from sport to sport year-round before, and we know how much of a stress it is on our family. I'm not sure
right,
how other families are dealing with it, but I would definitely recommend pursuing that free time and making sure that you are together as a family. For example, in our family, we have pizza movie night on Fridays. Friday night, pizza movie night. So we all know that we're going to make it to the end of the week. Got some chores to do, but by 5, 6 o'clock, we're going to be free to either order a pizza or cook up some frozen pizzas, and we're going to sit together and agree together on a movie that we can all share together. And sometimes we all decide that it's not a movie we're looking for. We'll play a game of some kind that we can all get to. There's 6 of us in our family, and mm-hmm. There's a few choices we have that we can all play together, and so we make a choice to do that. And as a coach, I would definitely recommend that, those kinds of family times that are without a screen in your face and without a deadline that we've got to be somewhere else at a certain time. You have to plan for that. So.
And I think it's so important, to connect with your family. I think sometimes we get focused on child A is going to this, child B is going to this, and they're all kind of solitary activities, and not necessarily that they aren't playing with other groups, but solitary in the sense that the whole family's not involved in it. And if we don't make that concentrated effort to connect, those activities can really drive a family apart rather than bring them together. Because I think that we've lost our way a little bit in making family time important. And then we wonder why our kids don't get along. We wonder why our family fabric is a little frayed. And I love your idea of, Friday nights, that you keep that for your family and your family time. We do Sunday afternoons. We definitely make sure that we spend time. We play a game or we just talk or something. Although as our kids have gotten older.
Sunday.
Sorry. I'm sorry?
Yeah, you mentioned Sunday afternoons. At our house, it's like everyone finds their own peaceful place. It's just kind of evolved that way where we're all trying to gather ourselves because we know there's another week of school and work ahead. And somehow it's evolved where we'll all get back from church, and that afternoon I'll just find everybody in a different corner of the house, just kind of doing their own thing. So
yeah.
You need that kind of time too.
Right, you do. That kind of, we definitely we don't do sports, we don't do birthday parties, we don't go out to eat. I mean, Sundays are for church and home and family.
Right.
And then we talk about the week to come. I bought a whiteboard recently and put it up on our wall because everyone was getting, we couldn't remember the things that everyone needs to know about what goes up there, so that and one of my daughters writes it because she has better handwriting than I do. So she's like, Mom, I'll write it so we can all read it. And that's been very helpful so that we kind of can keep track of where people are and who's going to be home when and all that kind of stuff. Because I think what we don't want to happen is that to allow all these wonderful opportunities, sports, school events, et cetera, to drive our families apart. Mm-hmm. We should use them more to drive to bring our families together.
Right. Well, there's definitely a pressure. I feel a pressure from, I think John Rosemond calls it the good mommy club. It's where you feel that pressure from everybody else. You feel like you should be doing something just because everybody else is doing it. And, you meet someone at school, back to school night or whatever, you talk to another parent, and one of the first things they ask is, so what does your family do? Meaning, what other activities do you do? We know you go to school here. What sports do you play? Or, et cetera. It's just part of what defines you. So if you don't have a clear answer for that, you feel like, well, maybe I'm missing something. We better sign up for soccer so that we're part of this too, So.
Yeah, I think that my kids haven't played sports, and part of that has been because my older girls weren't that interested, and partly when my boys would probably be interested, the way our family structure, we had a time where we needed our weekends more flexible, and now we all kind of like that. We're busy enough. And I just kind of feel that for our family, this is what works. But yes, we're kind of odd that nobody plays sports. But we kind of like it. It's it's like I said, it's working for us. And I think you really need to kind of do those checks, on a at least a yearly basis, if not more, and find out is it working for me as a mom? Is it working for you as a dad? Is it working for the kids? And then is it working for the family? And to ask those questions and to figure out, how all these things fit instead of just signing up because one of our kids was like, yeah, I want to play soccer. Well, maybe they can, but I think we sign them up and then we realize the impact rather than kind of looking at what the potential impact might be before we sign them up.
Yeah, it's hard. It's easy to get involved in something without knowing how much, you're really, for example, Cub Scouts came up recently at our school. we're already involved with a number of other things. And of course, I would love for my boys to be involved with Cub Scouts. I was a Cub Scout. There's a lot of good that comes from it. And the initial sign up is, after school once a week. Okay, well, that doesn't sound like so much. And then you get into the fees. Well, okay, that's another added expense. Let's add that times 4 boys. Okay, well, that's pretty expensive. So let's think about it. But then, in addition to the one time a week, you're expected to, get into the fundraisers. And that's, you're expected to raise, $1,000 a kid or something, and as their goal. And then there's, the weekend camping trips and all the extra stuff that will come up in addition to your one time a week. So there's, we just had to say no to Cub Scouts because it was just a great thing to be a part of, but we just don't have the time.
Well, I think it's wise to know, and I think we'll close with that because I think that's such an important point, Lance, that it's wise to look and to ask those questions. What are the commitments beyond the once-a-week practice or the once-a-week meeting? And can we meet whatever those requirements are? Is that going to fit in with our family? Well, you've been listening to You've Got This. I'm your host, Sarah Hammaker, and with me today was Lance Miller. He's a parent coach. I coaches some of his boys in sports, and we've been talking about how to handle kids' activities. I hope that you'll join me next week, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast of You've Got This with Sarah Hammaker. Sign up to receive notification of new podcasts and listen to previous editions at sarahhammaker.com. Until next time, remember, parenting might be hard sometimes, but don't worry, you've got this.